Getting a new homeowner's policy in the Golden State continues to be a struggle. In this episode of the SLO County Real Estate Podcast with Hal Sweasey, the team cannot stress enough that insurance needs to be the first thing you get on as soon as you go into escrow. Also covered in this episode is how insurance and lending needs to be one of those things that go hand in hand. And you could have run across some troubles in the transaction if you're not super prepared. Not to worry though, it's paradise every day right here in SLO County. Here's your host, James Bueno.
Wow, it's another beautiful day here in San Luis Obispo. It's nice and warm, and we are doing a podcast today with Mr. Sweasey. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, James Bueno.
And
I say the same thing every time you ask me that?
Yeah, I know, and I feel like I'm doing the same exact thing.
I'm unbelievable.
You are.
I'm going to
I'm going to switch it up. Mr. Kingman, how are you?
I'm doing great.
Oh, good.
Yeah, and I think I say great every time. So
yeah, I know. So think about it, Jay. Think about it.
Fabulous.
Jay, you're fabulous.
It's better than great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I got a heat advisory warning for Pismo Beach on my little Alexa on my desk.
Uh-huh.
The heat advice for tomorrow, it's supposed to be 91 in Pismo.
In the fall, which is beautiful.
Which is
right?
But
visibility,
91.
There's no wind. I mean, it's spectacular.
Oh, it's going to be amazing. And people in the Central Valley are like, you're out of your mind. 91 degrees is not hot.
That's a chill fact. That's
That's sweater weather.
Chill advisory.
Plug in your car so it doesn't the block doesn't freeze.
And it just a reminder of how awesome the weather is.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's super great.
And we get
That's
those
extreme.
great summer, the
Indian summer.
Yeah, this time of year is incredible.
It's the end of summer. Yeah.
The end, the beginning of summer. All right. What are we doing today, Hal?
Oh, the most exciting topic of all, we're going to talk about insurance.
Oh, yeah. That's new for us. We're moving up in the world. That's so great.
Is that an oboe? What makes that noise?
I think it's a
trombone.
Oh, it's a trombone.
Trombone.
You know,
Okay, that is very depressing.
So when JT is here, we got to surprise him with that. We got to kind of plan that.
Oh,
and then just get him with something and just.
I'll be on it. Like,
But
we need to strategize about that.
Hot button.
Awesome.
We're having way too much fun with this new technology.
Hey,
All right.
you can't make fun out of insurance.
That's true. All right, Hal. What do we got?
Well, so it's just important to bring up for anybody involved in buying or selling currently, and this happened fairly recently, but just a lot of insurance carriers have pulled out of California. It's very public knowledge right now just because their losses are so big and virtually can't cover enough to, in terms of they can't get enough to cover their losses, right? So it's very expensive, and a lot of places in the country have had trouble with that. Florida because of hurricanes, here because of floods and fires and all sorts of things, fires for sure. So in terms of a house purchase, it's a big deal, getting insurance. And for a while, it was just like, okay, I'm with X company. They're not going to cancel my insurance, but if you go somewhere else and buy a house or you're a new buyer, you have to get new insurance. And they were not writing new business, and almost everybody had stepped out. So now we have a few players coming back in, and it's really interesting. They have quotas. No disrespect to anybody in the industry, because I get it. Things are moving so fast. I tried to get some insurance people to come and talk about it, and nobody wanted to.
They said no.
Right. Usually if I get a lender, let's talk about it. But I think simply because it's a moving target, it's hard to commit. Their companies have to walk a line. I don't know what it is. But so what I'm going to tell the listeners is anecdotal. One of the insurance representatives said that the companies, and these are big companies, will have quotas. Okay, you can write homeowners policies, but you have this many. For example, you heard a number of like 7,000.
Yeah,
for the whole state.
The entire state.
Yes.
Yeah.
In the month.
Yep. So
right?
if you don't apply for insurance today on a home that you're going to close, and you're planning on closing the first week in November, you might not get insurance. In time to close.
So like somebody wrote an offer on one of our listings, and they already had their insurance. They were all prepared. They had it lined up. They just needed the property, so they got a commitment of insurance within a few days of being in escrow, which is a huge deal.
That's smart. Yeah.
Because we've had a lot of delays. But the interesting thing is the dynamic of a allotment or a fixed amount is $7,000 for this company. On the second day of the month, 6,000 commitments had been made.
Wow.
So that means, guess what? They're not writing anymore, and they're one of the bigger writers of homeowners insurance.
Talk about timing. Are you talking about start getting that thing going
immediately?
Yeah.
No matter what you're in,
and we're every day.
Are you like targeting closing dates in the first part of the month as a result of that?
Not so much that, but what we know is, you can't get a loan without insurance. You can buy a house by cash, and the escrow company will close, but no lender is going to lend on an uninsured house. Mm-hmm. So you have to get it done. Now, it's never been a contingency Never. Now, you might be able to legally get out of a contract because, well, I couldn't get my loan because I couldn't get fire insurance on your silly house or whatever, But at the end of the day, it is a very challenging situation. And then if there's always what's called the California Fair Plan.
Which isn't fair at all. No.
Which is
it's
unfair.
Ridiculously
right.
expensive.
And the costs, and I'm going to make big generalizations and disclaimer, these are not accurate, but anecdotally, it's 10 to 15 plus thousand, depending on where you are.
I can give you a real life example. A friend of mine had his policy lapse. He wasn't paying attention, and that he couldn't get reissued. He was paying $1,800 a year. California Fair Plan, $18,000 a year.
Wow.
That's rural Arroyo Grande, right? Okay.
Rural Grande.
So why is it called Fair Plan?
Because everybody can have it. You just have to pay for it.
It's marketing. Yeah, everybody gets one. They just don't like it.
So it's like Cobra insurance for health.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's expensive, right?
It's fair because everybody gets it,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
but if you don't have the money, you can't pay, and you can't pay for it, you don't get it. So I don't know what's fair about it.
Yeah. So somebody I know closely, their parents are same thing, like in the out between Arroyo Grande and San Luis Obispo rural, they had their stuff canceled. And they're trying to get the fair plan, which is difficult. If they would have been 1 minute closer to a fire station, it would have saved them a huge amount of money. Okay.
Wow.
So it's really interesting. Plus, they are getting so inundated. Imagine that, right? The fair plan, because they were just like this last ultimate stop with a small number of people needing it. Now more and more people need it. Like we had a home on the edge of San Luis Obispo up against the hills on Monterey Heights. And because it's close to a lot of trees and that hillside, I get it. There could be a fire there. It took weeks to get that thing finalized, right? You used to call your insurance carrier the day before you closed escrow.
Yeah, it was just
you want to write a policy? Oh, yeah. How big? What is it? Okay, we'll come look at it later. Yeah, so that dynamic has really just changed. Now there's discussions of this being worked on. It's become more of a politically sensitive, hot topic. So hopefully some changes are coming. But for now, it's just one more challenge for the home buying and selling process.
Yeah, the experience is much different now than it was just a year ago. And, John Turner was in the business for years, and I remember him saying that this isn't new. Like when the Northridge earthquake happened was that the 80s, early 90s?
Late 80s,
Late 80s, yeah. That the insurance companies took a browbeating and they needed to raise rates. The insurance commissioner was against that, so they had to pull out of the state. And they came back, and it's been 20, 30 years, since we've had a situation like this. But and there's been rumors, I don't know, was it an event earlier this week, where somebody from an attorney from the California Association of Realtors was speaking, and he said something to the kind that they're working on something, and the California Fair Plan is going to be changed to something else. It's going to be a little bit more reasonable because there's going to be more players back in town.
Yeah.
So, but for now, you better mind your P's and Q's get on it. Be on it fast. If you're getting into escrow, make sure you can get insured.
And be prepared for delays.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lending is getting a little bit more cumbersome as well.
Yeah, and even if you're paying cash, who's not going to insure their biggest asset?
Yeah.
I wouldn't buy a house cash and not have it insured.
Yes. And this is a little also anecdotal, and we're just kind of seeing this in general in the marketplace, but we are having delays in the lending process sometimes, which is just fascinating because we've got fewer homes selling than we had, in a lot of times, and we have more homes going for cash, right? Which means the lending companies and the people that work there, like half of the sales, according to a recent survey by one of the title companies, were cash. That's a huge, highest I've ever seen, right? And then you go, okay, so you've got 30% less sales than you had at the peak of the market. So you take that down. Then now half of them are not getting loans. So now you're down to, what is that? 25%. And so for the lenders, I think they're just probably having to cut back on staffing, so it slows things down.
I got a stat this morning: over 40% of the loan originators that were licensed in California are no longer in the business. 40%.
Yeah.
Because there's just the rates went up, and there's fewer properties, and people are paying cash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
heard that this morning.
Is there negotiations for changes? Like, are they coming back? Are things going to change? Is there anything on the?
Are we talking insurance?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. If we talk about insurance, I think they're going to change it from the California Fair Plan to the California Fairer Plan, maybe, or something, or kind of fair. I don't know.
Fair.
But yeah, no, there is discussions. Who knows what those are? But
Right.
it's been recognized, it's being discussed, and hopefully action will come from it.
You know, the conversation I had this morning with our lender partner, they were telling me that that's where that number came from. Over 40% of the loan originators are no longer in the business, but their pipeline of buyers is growing. Like, people are now realizing, okay, hey, if rates go up, I better get in now before rates go any higher.
Yeah.
And I can always. So I think people are starting to settle into that rate valuation. Like, what does that mean for their home? And since we're at that point where we're seeing properties kind of stay on the market a little bit longer, or concessions having to be made, we're going to get back to a point where, okay, buying a point down or two, or buying a half a point down, so that the buyer can get in, is going to start happening, I think, more regularly.
Yeah. I think that showed up last summer
It did.
when we had the fast increase. See, what scares people is the rate of change. I'm seeing that now where I go, okay, it's not going to be as easy to get a home sold going forward. I look back and go, this has been pretty darn easy for most.
Yeah.
If your house is in fairly good condition and you're willing to be reasonable on your price, it's going to be a relatively smooth showing offer type process. I'm just seeing, with the number of depth of buyers being fewer, that my sense is we are heading towards that. I think we talked about that last podcast, but it'll be a little bit more time where it's an more even playing ground, which I think is probably a little bit healthier.
Yeah, for both buyer and seller.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so if you think about from the buyer standpoint, he's maybe not competing with 20 offers.
Yeah.
Maybe there's 3 or 4, and they got to negotiate the best offer, and so it ends up being a much better situation. Even though it might be paying more for the property, the interest rates might be higher. It's less of a frenzy.
It's interesting because we're used to it, right? And I just helped a nice family that I know from our kids' elementary school. So my kids haven't been in elementary school for 20 years, right? So, and they've been in their house 30 years. Beautiful little place. And they want to move to Pennsylvania to be near their adult daughter now. And, they're going to pay half for the price they want there. And I said, I think at this price, we'll get a lot of activity. And we did get several offers that got bid up. But where they're looking, they don't have that many options. There's just one house available. So they've been thinking about it for a while. They finally pulled the trigger, and then it was like, okay, hurry up and rush. So we got like a 5-day contingency for a buyer to inspect it, which is nothing, because we got on the market really fast, and a 14-day close. They're super happy. And now they're trying to buy the house on the other end in Pennsylvania, and their laws are a little bit different. California is very protective of the buyer. In Pennsylvania, if you don't hit your deadline, then you either lose your deposit or you're out. So it's much more stringent and more slanted towards a fairness towards sellers in terms of rights. But they are stressed out. You're either going to get the house or you're not. So that's all that's going to have, worst case scenario. Yeah. And then really what we need to do is make sure your agent there protects your deposit. I think this transaction will go through, but it is super stressful. And in a more normal market, you got time to move. You don't have people fighting over the properties. So I think if it heads in that direction with rates continuing to increase, at some point that's going to occur. And I sense it's already kind of starting to happen a little bit now.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're seeing it across the board.
I mean, we never would have guessed 7% interest rates, and we never would have guessed prices were still this strong. Multiple offers, getting bid up in many cases. Not as many, but still happening.
Which is strange. I mean, it's so easy how it's interesting to me how the mind forgets. I bought my house, the one I'm in now, in 2006, and I paid 7.5% interest.
Right.
And then when rates went down to 3, it's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they're at 5. I can't believe they're at 6.
Yeah, I know.
What
Look
are
at
we
this.
talking
Yeah. You mean I can lower my payment? I mean, where else can you do that?
Yeah.
If you get a payment for anything where you
Yeah.
can lower it. So the insurance thing's an important situation. If you guys have questions, give us a call. We know we try to keep track of who's helping, but I know it's very specific, but I thought it was timely for the marketplace.
Yeah.
We've done it for a while, Hal, so let's let everybody know how to get a hold of you.
Okay, our office number is 805-781-3750, or you can go to hal@teamswayze.com, send us an email, but we love talking to people.
Yeah, that works. And then
Yep.
teamswayze.com, you can go just
Yes.
to our site.
That's right.
Visit our site, give us some numbers there.
Yeah.
Everybody, thank you for listening. We appreciate you all, and we will talk to you next week. Thank you for listening to the Hal Sweasey podcast. Be sure to subscribe and rate this podcast. It comes out every Monday, so check for it in your feed for the latest information on the San Luis Obispo County market. The SLO County Real Estate with Hal Sweasey podcast is available wherever you get your podcast and on halsweasey.com, where you can find current listings and other real estate tips. halsweasey.com, that's HALSWEASEY.com. I am James Bueno, Director of Marketing for the Hal Sweasey Group. If you're looking for anything real estate, give us a call, 805-781-3750.
Hal Sweasey is a licensed California real estate broker. DRE number 01111-911. The SLO County Real Estate with Hal Sweasey podcast is a production of AGM Podcasts. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.